how do you read the fact that the 49ers are still favored? Yes, part of it is that Vegas wants money on the Chiefs to offset the truckload of cash that will need to be paid out to futures bettors who went with the 49ers preseason. But I think there's more to it. It means something to me, Dibs. It really does, that all of the six-figure, some of them seven-figure bets, all of them are on the 49ers. The sharp money, if you will. Ethan brings up a couple of points. You can all bring up yours too. He says there's a couple things going on that actually are really in the 49ers' favor. And the public, let's be honest, the public is cruising out here with surface information. Every time you hear from a public bettor, oh, I like the Chiefs, what do they say? I mean,
Patrick Mahomes.
Mahomes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, what a breakdown. That's incredible. Because you know what? Have you ever thought of it this way? Let me argue something for you. Everybody who thinks the 49ers, quote-unquote, should have lost the last 2 weeks. Could I not argue that Patrick Mahomes, if we want to play the should game, who should, forget who did win, who should win? Well, Patrick Mahomes should not have a ring yet.
Well, he does.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Well,
if we're
there's
gonna
no
play,
such thing as,
right.
as should. So that's something that I don't understand, because at the end of 60 minutes, if the score's not tied, the game is over and somebody wins and somebody loses. And the team that, like last year, everybody telling me that, oh, the Niners were the better team. If they didn't lose their quarterback, they would have won that game.
Well, you can't even see that one right. But
who cares?
But
they didn't.
They
lost their quarterback and they lost the game.
I agree with you, but I'm proving a point here. I sat with you when the Chiefs played the Eagles.
Yeah.
Did you feel like the Eagles were going to win?
I did.
Did you feel like they should have won?
No.
Okay.
They lost.
I'm pretty sure you said that they should have won.
I mean, they should have and they could have. Yeah. I thought they were better. They had the lead, and when it came time to make a play, they didn't make the play. They committed the penalty. The Chiefs made the play. The Chiefs won the game. There's nothing about that made me feel like they should have won, because when a team should have won and they didn't win, either the refs screwed you or something like an act of God happened where you didn't win the game. Should Seattle have won the game when they chose not to hand the ball to Marshawn Lynch and they passed it instead?
I bet they think so.
Of course.
But I hear what you're saying.
But memo to you, Softy, and all the rest of you, you didn't win.
You didn't win.
Get over it.
You didn't make the play. You got to make the play.
There is no should.
I agree with you. However, I'm speaking to the people who say the 49ers should have lost one of the last two games. If you feel that, then I'd argue that Patrick Mahomes should be ringless, because he's won one Super Bowl. I'm sorry, two. He lost one. We got woefully outplayed. And then he won two. And in both of those games, he was down. He was down in the fourth quarter, and it felt like he was getting outplayed. So the question becomes, does that exist? The should party. You should have won. In other words, the 49ers are, quote, not playing well right now. Or do we look at teams that succeed in the fourth quarter and erase deficits and show up at the right moment, and their quarterback does the biggest things in the game at the biggest moments? Do we look at that as an actual characteristic, a characteristic of the team that could help them anytime they go into a big game? So in other words, for the 49ers, are you not playing well, or do you have championship characteristics?
It depends on how you look at it. Yep. And you could look at the defense and Tashawn Gibson with the forced fumble and Eric Armstead with the recovery and Brandon Ayuk not quitting on a play where the ball was overthrown by 5 yards. And that's a play where you've seen many receivers, once the ball flies over their head, I'm not getting it, I'm going to ease up. Ayuk never did. And off the face mask, he stayed with the play. He made the catch at the 4.5-yard line. They went on and scored from there. So there's a lot of things that went their way, but it doesn't mean that they shouldn't have won, or for whatever reason they don't deserve to be here. That's sports, and that's football. And I think about the Red Sox and the Mets back in 1986. Should the Red Sox have won the World Series? Yeah, they had the lead, and there was a slow roller along first, and a guy who might be a Hall of Famer otherwise if it wasn't for that play didn't make a play. The Mets tied the game. The Mets won. The Mets won the next night, and they won the World Series. Right. So we can should all we want. And you could talk about how the Tigers should have beat the Giants in 2014.
And the Giants should have beat the Angels in 2002.
And the A's should have beaten the Dodgers in 88, and they should have beaten the Reds in 1990. So we can should our way. Maybe we'll save the should hour for the super secret show from 4 to 6, but there is no such thing as should. It's like Yoda. There is no try. There is do or do not.
You're absolutely right.
The Niners should not have beaten Green Bay. Well, they did.
They did.
And they shouldn't have beaten Detroit. We know that.
They did.
But they did. And here we are, counting it down to the game in 3 hours and 1 minute, or 3 days and 1 hour.
Well, and to go back to Strauss's points, just to throw them out as discussion starters, maybe you see this differently, but the two things he points to as to why sharp bettors do still like the 49ers, because they're going deeper than this awesome point that you keep hearing people make. So why do you like the Chiefs? Well, Mahomes.
Worked for me in the conference.
Amazing breakdown. Amazing.
That was my breakdown.
That's amazing breakdown.
Game, yeah.
Like if that was the case, he would never lose a game, but he does. He does. He's lost the Super Bowl. He's lost in the playoffs. He lost 6 times in the regular season this year. He just hasn't lost in the last month. Doesn't really, for me, mean anything about this particular game coming up. So let's go deeper. Well, how about these for 2 ideas? Number 1, the Niners are healthier. The Chiefs have injuries, maybe not at the biggest of names, but injuries in spots that will hurt them. Tooney on the offensive line, very unlikely to play. Former 49er, Charles Omenihu. This great pass rush that we keep hearing about has always had him. And he's been one of the most productive players on it all year long. Well, he tore his ACL against the Ravens, so he is out. And that is going to be, I think, big in this game. You still got Chris Jones, but you don't have the person on the other side of him in Charles Omenihu. So that's big. And then the second point is, and I'm kind of amazed that this has been swept under the rug, the Kansas City Chiefs have factually, by metrics, one of the worst rush defenses in the entire NFL. So if the 49ers can do something that in theory looks to be simple, which is get their very effective run game, Christian McCaffrey and even Deebo Samuel going early and set a tone, well, you're probably going to move the ball. You're probably going to get the lead. You're probably going to be in a good spot if you can do that. And in theory, they should do that. You may say, well, Steve Spagnuolo was able to stop the Ravens from doing it. Very different offense. If you stack that full box and say you're not running the ball against us, and you leave all those corners one-on-one in the secondary with Ayuk, Deebo, Kittle, and Jennings, I would argue that Brock Purdy is going to have a field day and pick you apart. So there may well be a poison that Steve Spagnuolo has to pick. And maybe that is why the sharp money keeps coming in on the 49ers.
And the line stays where it is, and I think what you read from Ethan Strauss is probably pretty accurate in terms of their liability already on futures bets. So they want to keep the Chiefs as appetizing as possible to the popular bets, which are not the sharps. It's all of the people, all of the Steinies and the gurus in Vegas who see I get Mahomes and I get 2 points.
Right.
I'm in because the Niners might win, but you give me Mahomes and points. How do I resist that? You can't resist it. It's irresistible.
Right. Although I would argue every single time you see an irresistible bet in Vegas.
Yeah. You go the other way.
Be careful.
Yeah.
You better be careful.
You better be careful.
They're building all these casinos on the backs, not of the sharps, but of the public.
Yeah. So, listen, I have the utmost respect for Steve Spagnuolo. I think he's a fantastic defensive coordinator. I know that the Chiefs' secondary is very good, but I also know that we as fans are pretty simplistic when we look at this. Chiefs stopped Ravens, therefore will stop 49ers. No, totally different offense, totally different game, totally different matchup, totally different skill set of the quarterback. Lamar Jackson's going to be the MVP, and he's fantastic. But if you make him sit in the pocket and pick you apart with throws, it's not what he does. Brock Purdy does that better. Most NFL quarterbacks, in fact, do that better than Lamar Jackson. So it's a very different matchup.
Yeah. And the Ravens stopped the Ravens.
I agree with you.
They rushed the ball 8 times outside of Lamar Jackson in the game.